Inter Miami made headlines this week when Javier Mascherano announced that he was stepping down as the Inter Miami manager, just a couple months removed from winning the MLS Cup, but also just a couple weeks after losing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup round one for Inter Miami. Now, the question is, who are they going to hire to replace Javier Mascherano, as Messi only has a couple years left with Inter Miami, and they're going to want to capitalize on this as much as they possibly can. So we're going to talk about the five coaches that I think, or five coaches in general, that I think they could target to be their next manager at Inter Miami. Before we get into that, guys, make sure you guys like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. Also, MLS Moves was presented by FanDuel, our proud sponsor of the show. I brought on Scotty from the Pink Drive Dialogue to talk about these candidates and the likelihood of each one on their chances of becoming the next manager of Inter Miami. Scotty, it was probably a little over a month ago you came on and we were talking about the disaster exit by Inter Miami in the Champions Cup, losing to Nashville SC in the first round, or at least not the first round, but their first round in this CONCACAF Champions Cup, the round of 16. And if they should fire Mascherano, the confidence was probably an all-time low. Well, maybe not all-time low in Mascherano's tenure, because last year was pretty bad too, heading into the Club World Cup and then obviously Leagues Cup loss. But a month passed, nothing happened, and it seemed like he was going to keep his job. The new stadium opened up, and then out of nowhere, we get some news yesterday, probably morning, where an Inter Miami account shared some news saying, I hear that Inter Miami might be making a coaching change, which kind of caught everybody off guard, thinking, oh, is this true? Is this like a lie, rumor, whatever? And then probably an hour or two later, Inter Miami officially announces that Mascherano and the club have parted ways for personal reasons. What was your initial reaction when you saw that news?
I think the timing is the thing that shocks everyone. But as you let the news digest, I think you can make this make sense in a lot of ways, both from Mascherano's perspective and from the club's perspective. Obviously, the initial official announcement is that he steps away for personal reasons. And I will just respond by saying, in a very similar way to Tata Martino a year and a half ago, I think if the club was determined to keep this coach in as coach, he would still be the coach at Inter Miami. So I think the club is comfortable with Mascherano moving on, even if the timing's not great. And for the team's perspective, like, the timing is weird, except they're not in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They're only playing once a week in MLS games. And so the next 2 months until the World Cup is kind of going to be a malaise where you figure out what you got, but it's not urgent or desperate, and you've got the new stadium behind you. So it's fine, but it was certainly a shocking thing to come in the immediate aftermath of hearing the news.
Yeah, well, and there's obviously a little bit of discourse or debate on what actually happened and how he was exited from the team. Was he fired? Did he leave on his own accord? Was he for? There's all this speculation. Either way, I don't think that ownership was content with how he had performed honestly, this entire season. They obviously got bounced in the first round of the Champions Cup. They haven't won a game at their new stadium yet. 2 draws in that brand new stadium, which I guarantee you they were expecting at least 1 win in that brand new stadium. So very, very underwhelming start in 2026. So you and I thought it would be interesting to talk about some candidates of who could replace him. Now, this is my order of how I think I would want them to hire based on like realistic chances of getting them. And I'll get your opinion too, and we'll talk about what the actual realistic chances are, like 1 through 10 of them hiring each candidate. But we'll start off with the first guy. Me and you in agreement. We think this would be a great hire for Inter Miami. We'll both expand on why we think it would be good. And that is one, Marcelo Gallardo, the former River Plate manager, who I think was, looked like he was destined to have all kinds of different options abroad. I think he was even rumored at one time to be in contention to be the Barcelona manager, if I'm not mistaken. What is it about that Marcelo Gallardo that you like so much and would, like him to replace Mascherano at Miami?
Well, there's there's a couple boxes you want to check, especially as a fan, and you're trying to figure out who's the perfect coach for this. Obviously, you need to have a sense of urgency. You need to be winning right now, and you need a coach that has proven he can win. And that was maybe the biggest thing that was lacking with Mascherano, is that he didn't have much of a track record as a coach winning trophies and winning big games. Marcelo Gallardo has a phenomenal track record of winning big games. His Copa Libertadores record is unbelievable. And even in his second stint in River Plate, which just ended a couple months ago, he comes in summer 2024 and takes them to the semifinal, just immediately takes over the team, gets them deep. Quarterfinal loss last year to Palmeiras, but that's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, even at his lowest reputation point, which I do think is maybe right now, he's not as hot of a candidate as he was 5 or 6 years ago. He still has a knack for winning the big games, and that's what this Inter Miami project is about. It's winning the MLS Cup. It's winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's winning the knockout style games that Inter Miami's going to be playing in all the time. And he has an incredible history of that. And so to me, that's the biggest thing. And for those that don't know, he's already won 2 Copa Libertadores in the last decade with River Plate. And so, like, he has bona fides when it comes to winning championships. He is from Argentina, so he has the cultural connection. He actually played in MLS for a year earlier at the end of his career in maybe 2008, 2009 with DC United. Not super successful as a player, but I actually almost kind of like that, because I think it means he's going to have more respect for what this league is in a way that maybe not everyone coming from a country that looks down on the MLS would have. And then you talk about the style. It's more attacking. He's been a little bit fluid in how he deploys his team in terms of what formations he's able to use, which I think is also a really important factor. The one thing that makes him maybe not perfect or checking every box is he doesn't really seem to have any relationship with Messi and Messi's group. But aside from that, man, this feels like for Inter Miami, for an MLS team, like a home run hire, and a guy that, like you said, 5 or 6 years ago maybe was being looked at for some of the biggest jobs in the world, only because his stock has come down just a little bit. Does this feel like it's even sort of realistic? So I think this would be a home run hire.
Yeah, he had been flirting around with Atlanta United after Tata Martino had left in 2018. There were a lot of rumors linking him to MLS teams, and it's just something I don't think it really piqued his interest because of how hot of a name he was at the time, and all these options he had. It's like he would have to have something very special to want to leave River Plate, and he just didn't find that in MLS, no matter how much money, because I know that he was offered quite a bit of a pay raise compared to what he was making at River Plate to come to MLS, and he just had no interest. But it's a different part of his life, different part of his career. He's almost 50 years old. He's pretty much did everything you can do in South American soccer. He's won Copa Libertadores 2 times. Like you said, I don't think he has any interest in coaching any Brazilian teams. He coached in Saudi Arabia for like a year. Didn't really work out very well. I think maybe he was just kind of chasing the bag for a little bit, get that huge payday. Then he finds his way back to River Plate. I think it'd be a great hire, but to your point, I don't know if there's any relationship with Messi. I know Messi knows who he is. Messi keeps up with everything football in Argentina. He knows who Marcelo Gallardo is, but I don't know if that means that they would be willing to work with each other. And so, but I do think that based on him being available, stock down a little bit, it would make a lot of sense. And I think that he would, at the bare minimum, get more respect in the locker room, and they would be playing a more exciting brand of ball under Marcelo Gallardo.
100% agree. And like you mentioned, he is no longer coaching River Plate. He's a free agent. So if there was ever a time for this to make sense, this is the time for sure.
Okay, so out of 10, what would you grade it as far as your likelihood that he is the next manager?
Probably like a 4 out of 10. I think the lack of Messi connection makes this one really tough. And I'm sure we're going to talk about these guys in a few minutes. There's maybe 2 or 3 coaches that have that really solid Messi connection. And so my guess is it will be one of them. If it ends up not being one of them and none of them work out, then I think he's a guy that becomes sort of a top of the list type of candidate, because we know Inter Miami is going to be ambitious in who they go after. We see that in the players they go after. And so if they end up moving away from guys that Messi has a great relationship with, I think he becomes a much better candidate, or a much more likely candidate. But for right now, I still think we're likely to finish with someone in the Messi circle.
So I think that I would probably give it, I think he might be the most likely because of them needing a coach now. The plans obviously changed with Mascherano resigning way earlier than the summertime. So I do think that he might be number one for me just because of that. I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10. I mean, I'm not like all the way in, but I'm not all the way out. I do think there's a lot of things that, a lot of boxes he checks that could make him an easy transition and hire for them at the moment if they hire someone before the summertime.
Well, I think you make a great point. Maybe they would have rather have done this in July when the World Cup is getting going, and maybe a lot of coaches in Europe are out of contract, and the World Cup coaches are maybe about to look for new jobs. If they are planning to hire a coach in the next week or two, then I agree with you. I think this, again, he goes up the ladder. I do think, based on what we've heard over the last 24 hours, they're going to be comfortable going with what they have at the moment until the summer. But we'll see. And maybe this is a guy that they're already talking to, and if it can work early.
And things can change very quickly. Okay,
Yeah.
so my number two, right, is Xavi Hernandez. And I believe this is the guy they should have hired from the jump in 2024, beginning of 25, instead of Javier Mascherano, because of his pedigree as a player, as a coach, relationship with the players that are on the team, Suarez, Messi, Sergio Busquets, and obviously Jordi Alba. He ticks a lot of boxes. You don't really get a coach that's very successful that was as good of a player. Very rare that they both happen, that you're good at both. And he's also a free agent, Scotty. He has not had a club since Barcelona parted ways with him in May of 2024. He's been out of coaching for almost 2 years. What's your thoughts on Xavi Hernandez being the next Inter Miami coach?
Maybe the favorite in the clubhouse in terms of likelihood. He has the Messi connection. I think that's the thing that every conversation is going to start with, and he is a free agent as of this moment, and I think that makes a big difference. It's maybe the biggest question is if he wants to do this and if the price makes sense. There was a time where he was being looked at by Manchester United and some of the biggest clubs in the world. If that star has faded just a little bit over the last 18 months, maybe he's more interested in a job like Inter Miami. I think they would like to do this. I think it's a matter of if there's mutual interest. That said, I don't think anyone can look at what he did at Barcelona and not think this is a fantastic hire for an MLS club like an Inter Miami. I think tactically he's very top 50 in the world, top 30 in the world, and so maybe it's not quite good enough for Barcelona, but for Inter Miami, that's a dream come true. So I would love it. I think the Messi connection makes a lot of sense, but this is a guy that I think maybe is going to wait until the summer to see what other jobs pop open, and maybe Inter Miami then comes into the picture. That would be my guess.
Well, I'll say this. I had heard that Miami courted him pretty heavily the first time, and he just couldn't agree on the salary because he was making, I don't know, 10 to 15 million a year as the manager at Barcelona, and Miami's just not going to pay that much, or they weren't at the time. They were going to pay probably something closer to 5 million max. So he'd be taking a huge pay cut for his services. And I just don't think his heart was fully in it. So I don't think it really got anywhere serious, but they really wanted him. I know that they were very interested in Xavi Hernandez the first run. Now we're 2 years later, or a year and a half later. Things are different, right? He's not had a job in 2 years. There have been interest. Big jobs have been interested in him. He's not taking them, which begs the question for me. Is he waiting for a specific job? Is he waiting for Pep Guardiola to step down as the city manager and take over because they run a very similar system? He played for Pep Guardiola for several years. He played with Pep Guardiola at Barcelona. I think that they're very similar coaches. They're no nonsense. I think that maybe that's the job he's been holding out for. Because you got to think too, not to go off on the Barcelona tangent, but when he was coaching Barcelona, Xavi, they were in financial hell. I don't know how much you keep up with La Liga, but they weren't able to sign players. They had to just take free transfers and do youth academy, play about a bunch of kids. And so going from that to Man City, where money is they can spend whatever they want, unlimited resources. I think that would be a very, nice transition for him to be able to get the players he wants. So I think his eyes have always been on Manchester City as his next job. Now, I don't know if they want him back. I don't know if it's a one-sided affair. So that's the only thing that makes it tricky for me. But Xavi Hernandez was incredible at Barca, won the league for him. I think that Lamine Yamal is on his trajectory now because Xavi was the one playing him at 16 years old, or playing at 15 years old. He was the one that was giving him his first team minutes and playing him young. So I think Xavi Hernandez is very vital to some of these Barca kids being able to play, developing, and being as good as they are. So I love Xavi Hernandez. Honestly, I would love if I was, that's the guy that I would hire. If he would come, it's just more of like, is he going to? I don't know. I think he might wait. So I think he checks and the Messi connection, right?
The other job that maybe he is have an eye on is the Spanish national team job. That's another job that might be coming open at the end of the summer. And so, that's I guess my point is if you're him, there's going to be a lot of jobs opening that come up that are going to be something Inter Miami can't really compete with, whether it's Man City, whether it's other top clubs in Europe, because you know how these things happen. I just think that would be one Inter Miami has to wait for and hope he kind of falls through it, the cracks on some of those coaching jobs.
So what would you give this one out of a 10? Likelihood of happening?
I mean, I will just say, I think my scale is lower than yours. So I do think Gallardo may be the most likely we talk about, but I'll go 3 out of 10 here because I think it's real. I think Inter Miami is going to contact him and try and make this work. But I think from his perspective, it's going to take some real convincing and maybe some time to see how things shake out. So for right now, I'll go 3. But he's another guy that, if we get to the end of the summer and he doesn't have a new job, then I think this becomes a lot more likely.
I'd probably give this one a 7 out of 10 as well. And I'll say this. I think Xavi is a guy they've been talking to already. And I think Xavi could be a guy who, when they were talking to some of his people or close contacts, maybe relayed some of this information back to Mascherano and said, hey, just to let you know, people are already reaching out to Xavi from Inter Miami, just to let you know. That's happening right now. And that's why he got ahead of this and maybe resigned. So I think that Xavi could be the guy that's kind of kickstarted this whole thing. That makes the most sense with all the connections that all these players and Xavi and Javier Mascherano have. Because Mascherano played at Barcelona for, what was it, 7 years, 8 years? So, and they played together. So, and then all the players too for Inter Miami that played there. I think there's a lot of connections, and I think that would be the most likely if they're snooping around that got back to Mascherano.
Maybe. I think we could probably play that game with another coach we're going to talk about here in a minute. So I don't want to pin it just on Xavi. But I think that could make a lot of sense.
Hey, everyone, quick word from our sponsor, FanDuel. If you're into soccer like I am, you already know how exciting La Liga, the Premier League, and MLS matches can get. With FanDuel, you can make it even more fun by placing bets on your favorite teams and matches across all 3 leagues. Whether it's a Premier League showdown, a La Liga thriller, or an MLS game with your local club, FanDuel makes it easy and exciting to bet on what you watch. Just remember, you have to be 21 years or older to play. Please bet responsibly and only if you're of legal age and in a state where it's allowed. Download the FanDuel app or head over to FanDuel.com, sign up, and get in on the action. Thanks for supporting the channel through FanDuel. Okay, so here's the third coach. Now, this is the one that got me in a lot of trouble yesterday. For some reason, I'm not really sure why. The third coach is Lionel Scaloni, the current Argentine international manager. Now people said I was crazy for this one because they said, Will, he's going to have any coaching job he wants. He could coach anywhere in the world. He could coach at City. He could coach at Inter Milan, whatever he wants, right? Maybe Real Madrid. He's not going to have any shortage of opportunities. But I think, I'm curious what you think about this too. Lionel Scaloni is a dark horse because his relationship with Messi, we know that they're close. And I don't know if you knew this, but of any coach that Messi's ever had, this has been the longest working relationship that he has ever had with any coach in his career. He has never played under one coach for more than 5 years, which was Pep Guardiola. Lionel Scaloni is the longest tenure coach he's ever had, 8 years as the Argentine national team manager. So they have a long history and relationship. And obviously they've won a lot of trophies together. And I think with his love, people don't realize this too. Lionel Scaloni has been to several Inter Miami matches throughout Messi's tenure. several matches in Fort Lauderdale, to say the least. So he's traveling even further. It's like he's just conveniently in Miami. He's going to Fort Lauderdale, and he loves Miami. Him and Messi fought to have their facility built in the city. I think that there's a deeper connection to Miami for Scaloni than people realize, and I don't think people can discredit this from being out of the question.
No, I agree with you. Maybe he'd be the guy I would consider most likely. I give him like a 4.5 right now on the scale because, listen, he's going to have his choice on what he wants to do with his career, but he's never jumped at going to Real Madrid or wherever, and he could have done that after the last World Cup. Like he will have the pick of what he wants his future to look like, and he's already proven himself at the world stage, winning a World Cup, winning back-to-back Copa Americas. Like he is bona fide. He could do the La Liga top 10 clubs in the world if he wanted to. But if he comes to Inter Miami, I think he's going to have a little bit more of a lifestyle and cushion, and it'll be like an easier transition to club ball if that's what he wants to do. And as you mentioned, not only the facilities not only coming to Inter Miami, but they've played plenty of their friendlies in South Florida. They've done plenty of their training camps in South Florida. He's very familiar with the area and with the people here and with the culture. And then the biggest one, of course, is Lionel Messi. If he decides he wants to step down as Argentine manager at the end of this World Cup cycle, which he has been that coach for a very long time, and he does want to be a club coach, I don't think anything would be more persuasive than Lionel Messi going, listen, I have a great job for you, and we're going to go win a lot of games together. So I actually don't think dismissing this one out of hand is appropriate at this point in time. And to your point about Xavi, obviously Javier Mascherano worked as the U20 coach and the U Olympic team coach in the Argentine Federation. So another guy that if Scaloni and his team were maybe talked to or there was some back channel conversations with, that's another sort of person or team that could have gone back to Mascherano because there's plenty of working relationships there for Mascherano's youth national team coaching tenure.
Well, also, too, Scaloni has really struck me as a low-key guy. I don't think he really likes the limelight like that. So going, and I know there's pressure with Argentina. I'm not saying there's not. There obviously is with that coaching that national team. But it's not the same coaching a national team as it is coaching Madrid every week, Barcelona every week, Inter Milan every week, right? There is pressure every week, and I just don't think he likes – I don't necessarily think that really entices him, or he probably would have made that move maybe even after the World Cup in 2022 after winning it. So I don't think he's jumping at the bit to just go over, take the biggest job possible in Europe. I do think Miami's enticing to him. I'm not saying he's going to take the job, but I think people discrediting them being interested or there being some mutual interest. I think that this is the real guy, to your point, who really got this thing kick-started, and that's what my theory was about Scaloni, because this will probably be his last tenure last cycle being the Argentine national team coach. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to be able to sign wherever he wants after the summer. I think this is their dream hire. And I'll also say something else, too. When it comes to recruiting these big managers, you have three people three of the best people you could possibly have when it comes to pitching this job, right? You have Lionel Messi, the relationship, the star power, best player of all time, right? You play for him now. That's appealing to have, pulling you in this direction to coach his team. You have David Beckham, who is a global icon with soccer, businessman. He's a figure that people really look up to in soccer, and they just kind of associate him with I don't want to say businessman or anything like that, but he just has this aura, this appeal, and I think he's a huge reason why Messi came to Inter Miami in the first place. He was a big salesman in that. And then you have Jorge Mas, the local businessman, who's done a really good job of investing and committing to this team and building this brand to what it is right now. And I think that when you have all three of those people together, I think that it's a very enticing proposition to get Scaloni, someone like him, to be interested in this job. So I would not discount that trio from being able to persuade him to come coach in Miami after the World Cup.
The other thing we should mention is he is paying attention to Inter Miami because he's going to be watching Lionel Messi's games. He's going to be watching Rodrigo de Paul. He's going to be scouting some of the guys on the periphery of the pool, like David Ajalo, or young guys like Silvetti. Like, he's going to be familiar with this Inter Miami team. And so, it feels like, an MLS team trying to recruit this coach maybe feels unrealistic. But this specific team is going to be one that's been on his mind because he's going to be watching these games to keep track of his players. So, it's not going to come out of the blue for him in a way that maybe an Atlanta United would or someone else, because he's going to have been tracking this team. So maybe he does think about, he's watching the game and, this is something I could do better. Like those types of scenarios I think could be realistic. So I agree with you. I think this is a guy that Inter Miami fans should keep their eye on as we get into the
So you're
World Cup.
4.5 out of 10 on this one.
That's my highest one though. So
Okay.
again, my scale is a little bit lower than yours for sure.
I would say I'm a 6 out of 10. I think the other two are more likely because they have to wait till probably after July to hire him. He probably wouldn't coach his first game until August. So that's a long time. It's 4 months away until he would even take the helm. So I think they would love to have him in a perfect world. Maybe if Mascherano hadn't left early, this would have been more seamless because they would have probably the boat would not have been rocked as much, and it's kind of like shaky ground right now with the team. We don't really know what's going to happen under this interim manager. The whole staff left, so I go probably 6 out of 10, and I do think this would probably be realistically their number one target to hire if they were could pick who they wanted as their manager. Okay, so the next guy, all right. Now this one is where people are saying, "Man, this guy's out of his mind. There's no way, right? There's no way this is going to happen." Will is definitely on something, right? But let me make my point before you discredit it, okay? Because I got a lot of heat today. Pep Guardiola, okay? Now, I know people are going to say, dude, there's no way in hell Pep Guardiola is going to coach Inter Miami. No way, right? Okay, here's my point. This is my argument for this. Pep Guardiola has done everything in Europe. He's won Champions League. He's won every league he's been in. He's literally been at the pinnacle of European football. He's done it all multiple times, right? There's literally nothing left for him to do unless he really just wants to chase the Champions League record that Ancelotti has with 5. He's got 3. I don't think he really cares about that, right? So he's pretty much done everything you possibly can do in European football. There were rumors about him being a national team coach. Maybe he's a guy that's interested in the Spanish national team. There's also been rumors about him maybe taking over the English national team. Maybe. I don't know. He's also said in the past that he's interested in moving to America and maybe coaching in America one day. So he's already laid the groundwork for that. He has a relationship with Messi. He is a key figure in developing Messi earlier in his career. And I don't know what their personal relationship is, like if they're friendly off the field, like, true friends. But I know work-wise, they have a lot of respect for each other, and they understand how important each other was to each other's careers, especially early on at Barcelona. And he's likely to be a free agent after the summer. He's going to leave. He's going to leave Manchester City. I think he's going to go. So you're going to be able to get him on a free. He's going to be a free agent. He's on with whoever he wants. I just think this is something people shouldn't totally discredit. I'm not saying it's high on my list, like the likelihood, but I think people should keep an eye on it.
Listen, like it's certainly pie in the sky in terms of what you'd want. Of course, if Pep Guardiola said, "Hey, listen, I want to be the Inter Miami coach," you do whatever it takes to make it happen. But this is going to be like a slow burn, and I don't think this is a guy that they're going to go to in the next week or two and gauge his interest. I think this is, as we're talking about with some of these other candidates, if they get to the World Cup and they're still sort of peeking around, and then maybe he does officially resign from Manchester City and he decides he wants to keep coaching, like maybe. But like the weird thing about this is he checks a lot of the boxes you'd want, specifically with Lionel Messi. So maybe be a lot of fun. He does, as you mentioned, has talked in the past about wanting to live in the U.S., and so maybe. But it is hard to get excited about the idea that he would be a realistic candidate at the moment.
Well, also too, the one, and by the way, I would give my score. I think it's probably a 2.5 out of 10. I mean, it's very low you've heard my other grades. This is by far the lowest. Another thing too is he can't just buy whoever he wants. He can't go get a left back or right back or defensive midfielder to plug and play. Like it's different here. Like you kind of have to work with what you have to a certain degree. So that would be a huge adjustment for him at Inter Miami. But I just think with the timing, with him being a free agent potentially in the relationship, it's something to keep an eye on. And if Pep doesn't come in the next year or two, he's never coming to MLS. Like this is kind of like we're in that window now. If he leaves, it's now or never. So I got that at 2.5. He's low. He's very low on my list, but I do think people should keep an eye on him.
He feels like he's definitely going to be able to pick his next job. So I wouldn't totally write off that he resigns officially, and he kind of looks around the landscape and says that could be a fun project. I'll go, 0.5 out of 10, but like it
Point
is.
0.5. Okay.
Well, I'm kind of doing it like a percentage, maybe a 5%
I got you.
chance. But
I got you.
I agree with you. Maybe if it was going to be any club in MLS, why wouldn't it be Inter Miami?
Yeah. Okay. So the last guy we have, and this is actually a guy who was rumored with Inter Miami last year, pretty heavy, right? It's Andre Jardine, the Club America manager. Now, before Javier Mascherano won a couple games in the Club World Cup, his seat was very hot. There were rumors every day about Jardine ready to take over and go to Inter Miami and succeed him, right? And those rumors would not go away. But then he won. He got out of the group stage at the Club World Cup, and then they got destroyed by PSG. But still, they looked pretty good in the Club World Cup, better than maybe many people thought they would. So then Mascherano's seat cooled down and he was safe. Now, Andre Jardine has been in kind of hot water with Club America. He had a very good start with the team when he took over, but it's been kind of cooled down. Now, some people say it's because they haven't been playing at home. Estadio Azteca just opened up for the first time in like 3 years yesterday in their loss against Nashville SC. Do you think they go back down this road and maybe try to see if he is interested in the Inter Miami job? Are they interested in him?
Yeah, maybe some of the guys we talked about already are like home run hires, just absolute fantastic hires. Jardine feels maybe in the more realistic category. He's a guy that Inter Miami was linked with, as you mentioned, a year ago. Maybe it wouldn't be that difficult to get him out of his current job, and so he could be a guy that comes in the near term. Like he's a good coach, I think, but he doesn't have the Messi connection. So that's going to be the real conversation. And whether it's Jardine or Wilfred Nancy or Jim Curtin or whoever, like if we're going to move away from the having to have a Messi connection, then there's a whole host of guys that become real candidates. I guess I'll say for Jardine, maybe I wouldn't expect it because the luster is a little bit off. He doesn't quite have the track record that maybe like a year ago he was like an up-and-coming star. Doesn't have the 10-year track record of a guy like Marcelo Gallardo. So I don't know. But again, it does come down to if they want to make a decision in the next 2 weeks, I think this is a guy that maybe could be a real option if they are willing to sit with Guillermo Hoyos, the interim, until the World Cup. Maybe they would look for some higher profile coaches. But he's a guy that they've liked in the past, and so as far as real names and real candidates, I think he's at least someone to pay attention to. Yeah.
What's your number on that one?
For him specifically, probably like a 3 out of 10, 30% chance. But
damn, that's higher. I'll be honest, I'm kind of like a 0 out of 10. I don't think there's a chance they'll hire him just because if his stock was higher, I do think maybe they would, but his stock is like plummeted. I mean, Club America fans are calling for his head. I just don't think that would sit well with a lot of Miami fans to hire a guy who's on a downward trend, especially because they're wanting to win Champions Cup. Like that's the big goal. This guy just failed and lost. He was the coach of Club America who lost their first ever game in the Champions Cup to an MLS team ever.
True.
So True. At Azteca. So that just, I feel like it's a 0 out of 10. Maybe if if they had been better recently, then it would be a little higher, maybe like a 3 or 4. But for me, I think I just don't think I think they'll go in a different direction than him.
Yeah. The reason why I think this is maybe at least realistic is because I think he could be available. And so if they want to get a guy in the next couple of weeks, this is a guy that I think could be available.
So I don't know if anyone caught on to this, but you and I didn't mention a single American coach or former MLS coach. I don't think they're going to hire an MLS coach for many reasons, but the main reason too is the Messi connection. And also too, it doesn't really make sense to have an American coach for this team. They don't even have an American starter. There's not a single American international that's starting on this team right now. I mean, so I just think that that's kind of overblown. I don't think that really matters. And there's no American or former MLS coach that I think would be better for this team than the other guys that we named. I mean, obviously, there's some pretty good names on here, but some of them I think they actually have a chance of getting. I just don't think that it would work out with some of these former MLS coaches.
I think you you nailed it in the sense that there's not like a guy that is a former MLS coach that makes a ton of sense either. You have some great coaches in the league, but none of them feel like they're fits at Inter Miami. And some of the recent coaches, like a Wolf Nancy, like a Jim Curtin, that are well thought of, also just don't feel like good fits for this club at this point in time. So it's not even that I think they're ambivalent to being a former MLS coach or having experience in the league, but it doesn't feel like there's a guy that's hitting the criteria of instant success, urgency, understands the culture, wants to be like a part of this and understands what this club is right now. So like I think they're not going to go that direction just because I don't think there's a candidate that makes a ton of sense in that regards. I will say Matias Almeida, who has some Messi connections, former San Jose Earthquakes coaches, like has some of those boxes, but it just doesn't feel like he has the pedigree that you really want. So I agree with you. I don't think they're going to go with a guy that has really any MLS experience unless it's some distant, like, he was a player for a year or something like that with a Marcelo Gallardo type situation.
Okay, so final question I have for you. When do you realistically, we talked about some theories of timing and when they said they're comfortable, but what does Scotty think? When do you think they're going to hire their next manager? Like when do you think that this gets done?
My guess is that it will wait till the World Cup break. And, maybe they will have conversations. Maybe they'll even have an announcement early on in the World Cup, but it wouldn't surprise me if that coach doesn't take over until after the World Cup. This team is, for this season, worried about qualifying for CONCACAF Champions Cup next year. They're worried about trying to win the MLS Cup. They're trying to win the Campeones Cup. They don't need these next 8 games to be a smashing success because their goals are different. And so I think they're going to be comfortable for the next 8 weeks, 7 weeks until the World Cup break to kind of ride out with who they have. That's my guess. But I guess things can change quickly in this world. And if they get a guy they like, then I think they'll pull the trigger. I don't think they're afraid to pull the trigger.
I think that they're going to hire a guy before June 1st.
Okay.
And it's not because that I just think they want to get this thing going as quickly as possible, and they want to get the new guy in to try to build some chemistry. Because like I said, if they wait after the World Cup, they're not coaching their first game till August 1st. And who knows what this team's looking like by then? Who knows that the interim's going to be a dumpster fire and the team really needs some saving? And plus, you kind of want to get a guy in as soon as possible that can kind of start building out their summer plans, moving off of guys, bringing guys in. I think it's important, for the team structure.
Yeah, I will say to that point, I'm not sure that they're going to be that affected by needing a coach to make sure they get the right summer transfer window. I think this club is willing to make their decisions, and especially the high-profile decisions, without making sure the coach is like leading the decision-making process on that. So I don't know if that's going to be an urgent need for them in their heads.
Well, we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see whenever they do make a hire. We'll make sure to have you on and talk about it and see what the excitement or disapproval is for the new hire. Scotty, I appreciate you for coming on, my friend. Guys, make sure you go check him out at the Drive Pink Dialogue. He does great work. He had 2 episodes yesterday himself. He had one talking about Mascherano being fired. Then he had another one, I think, talking about the candidates and who they might like to hire. So make sure you guys go check him out. We're going to collab on this. You'll see his channel down below. Scotty, any final thoughts before we head out?
No, man. Just I think the next coach will be an improvement. I don't think the bar is that high to get more out of this team. I think it's really talented, and so I think the new coach is going to have a lot to work with. And then also, I just appreciate you having me on, man. I always love talking ball.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it too. Guys, make sure you guys like this down below. Let us know who you want Inter Miami to hire, and let us know who you think Inter Miami is going to hire. Also, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. And also, remember, MLS Moves was presented by FanDuel. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.